Hi everyone, it's Joey Remenyi from seekingbalance.com.au, and I have a case study for us today. I would like to introduce you to Tinkara from Slovenia. Welcome and thank you for your time.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, honestly, it's a real treat to meet the people who are part of our Rocksteady community, and you very bravely and courageously and hopefully gently enjoyed the Rocksteady process. And I would love you to share what attracted you to Rocksteady, what you learned. And actually, I'd love to hear also how you engaged with the program and the self-study and the online modules and everything. I think it'd be really great just to hear the nuts and bolts. But let us know from the beginning.
Yeah, so for me, it's really a story of my life turning upside down in a matter of one night.
Mm.
So I went to bed. It was the Corona times, um, and my partner got the virus, and obviously I got the virus as well. And what happened to me was that looking back on it now, thinking that, it was probably just the cherry on the top of an ice
Mm.
cream.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so what happened to me was that the virus probably just, pushed everything forward. Um, and yeah, I woke up, I went to bed for 8 hours. I woke up and I couldn't hear anything, basically. I
Mm.
had no idea what was happening to me. Absolutely no idea. Never heard of tinnitus before. Um, in the beginning, I treated it as this is gonna pass. It's just some noise. It will be fine. I remember I was looking at some pills online that are supposed to help you, and like I was about to order them. And but it started getting worse and worse by the hour, and I started panicking. I started like feeling super anxious, and it wasn't just the ringing, it was like the tension in my head and just kind of like not being able to, just not feeling myself, basically. I was like, what's going on? Like, how can 8 hours change so much in my life? Like, not being able to function as a normal human being, literally. It was crazy. And yeah, after some time, actually, and when I say some time, I mean in this time of maybe a month after it happened, or two, yeah, maybe a month or a month and a half, I tried everything possible. I think I spent all my money on my bank account. I went from one person to another. Um, yeah, I think there was nothing I haven't tried. And everywhere I went, I asked, have you seen this before? Have you dealt with this before? And people would tell me different stories. Yeah, I have a mother-in-law who has this, and once you get it, it never goes away, but it can be kind of like treated and you can live with it. And I was panicking even more because I thought, wait, I cannot live with this kind of like ringing and noises in my head. This is impossible. Like, and also, I started getting so anxious over a longer period of time, every day, the whole night. I didn't sleep anymore. I couldn't be alone anymore. It was just really a matter of not knowing what's going on with you. Just like, can someone please tell me what's going on with me? And then, yeah, I still get so emotional talking about it because it was just so difficult for me. And my friend, she used to live in Australia, and she said, I heard of this Joey Remenyi, and maybe you should look her program up. I think she works with that specifically. So I went online and I found your website and you, and I looked at the program, but there was no way I could afford it because I had already spent so much money on everything else.
Mm.
And I remember sitting on my couch and finding the scholarship option,
Mm,
and feeling so ashamed to write, like, oh my God, what is she gonna think? I don't have any money, I'm a loser, like really, really kind of heavy thoughts.
mm,
But then I heard a voice saying, you have nothing to lose. Like, this is it, is this, or it was basically trying something that I didn't want to do per se in that moment,
mm,
or kind of like not really wanting to live this life anymore. Because I was like, if this is what my life is,
mm,
I I don't think I want to do this anymore. Um, and so I wrote the email saying, you know, please help me. Like, I really want to do this. And when I got the answer that I was granted a full scholarship, I remember I was like, it was probably the first time I smiled in a long time.
mm,
Um, and I went to my partner. I was like, look, this is happening. And so immediately when I got the program, I was like, because I'm a yoga teacher, and until that point, I have had a full-on yoga studio for 5 years. So it was like, it was huge and it was going well. And I was teaching yoga before all over the world. So I thought, I have tools to help myself.
mm,
But I couldn't do anything. Like, no yoga would help me at that time because it was just too much.
mm,
So when I opened your program and I started, going through it and going through the recording of, I remember that recording that I'm safe, just acknowledging there's no bear chasing me, there's no floods coming after me, that like, I mean, I remember listening to those recordings, I was crying so much because I finally felt something releasing. And I finally felt like I was able to breathe in properly, and just kind of, I didn't know I was calming down at that point, but I think that's what was happening.
mm.
And
I think
yeah.
there's also a really complex, beautiful, subtle layers, many, many layers of understanding our mind body and emotions, the physicality, the sensations, cultural assumptions, society, environmental, the spiritual, the thoughts. Like, it sort of doesn't matter how much yoga you've been taught or practiced, or how much psychology you've studied, or how much Tai Chi you've done, or, there's all these different ways we can learn, but tying it all together and making sense of it in the here and now in these really profoundly intense ways. That's what the Rocksteady process is all about. And yeah, it's so much more than yoga from a Western point of view, because a lot of people see yoga as yoga poses. But really the true yoga is the Rocksteady process. It's this self-observation, it's this constant inquiry, it's being present with what's arising, and not running away, and allowing the mind body to make sense of it, and having this bigger witness, this eternal self, this soul self, holding space for all the messiness. And it really does take a community. And I'm curious, did you find you could lean into the call replays and connect to the community in any way that was helpful?
Yeah, I basically really used everything I could use in a way that I listened to the group recordings. Um, and I remember one time in the group recording, you were talking to someone, and she was just going through years and years of, not feeling quite right. And you asked her to write a letter from her, what was it, from her hurt self to the wise woman, or it was something like that.
Was it maybe writing a letter to her elder self, the part of her that's already gotten through it and's on the other side? And
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so I started writing that. I did that exercise, and that was like, oh wow, that was,
I think that's in module 4.
it helped me so much. And just listening to other case studies. I remember one case study where a woman shows a collage of her inner world.
Mm-hmm.
And to me at that point, because I still very much was in it,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is just not possible for me. It's just, it just this won't happen to me. It's impossible. And she was so happy and vibrant and, full of these discoveries. And I was like, wow. But I did listen, I did give it a chance. I did do the exercises. And like you said, I couldn't help myself with bits of yoga that I had the knowledge, but like putting it all together. And mostly what I discovered was self-love.
Mm.
Because for me, with this symptom of tinnitus, so many stuff came up. And oh my God, like stuff connected to my family and wow, generational
Mm-hmm.
pain.
The layers.
All, yes.
So
Like everything I didn't allow myself to feel for the last 30 years was right there.
yeah. And
And like yeah.
the way I kind of view this these days now is like the body is our sacred filter. It's our physical way of being in the world. And we're floating in all of this invisible data, all the mental, emotional, spiritual ideas, beliefs, fears, dreams, politics, culture, assumptions, judgments, all of it. It enters our body, and unless we digest it and integrate it, it actually lodges into our connective tissue and into our neural patterns as a stress and tension pattern. And it lives in there forever until we actually feel it. So if we have all this undigested life force, which invariably we all do to a degree, um, we become somatic. So we start to feel itchy or dry throat or tinnitus or dizziness or pain or insomnia. The body will actually tell us, hey, I've got all these tension patterns. It's time to digest. And so the rock steady process is really a way of going, what are the underlying tension patterns here and the packages in my body? How can I excrete them, release them, integrate them, digest them, understand them, express them out of my body so my body's not holding on to it? So we have this softening of all the rigidity that's within us. So it really is a whole body process, and it's the body that's leading the healing, not the mind finding fixes or answers. It's very counterculture and very intuitive.
Yeah, it's the body leading it. Yeah, for sure. And when you mentioned softness, that's exactly what happened to me over a certain period of time using the Rocksteady program. I softened within,
Mm.
and I don't really know what would have happened to me if I didn't find this program. Like, I don't know, I can't say, but
I'm so pleased that you applied for that scholarship and you backed yourself.
yeah, I think that was the first. I think that was like empowerment from myself to myself, that I even wrote that I felt so ashamed, but I still wrote it.
Yeah. And
And then
it's all part of it, really, because even just because for those people who do have access to money and finances, it's a similar process. They still go through shame and the investment, and there's lots of things we want to do in life, and putting all that money into like a medical thing or self-development can feel very confronting, but it's actually a really important step. And trusting the process, investing in ourselves, and eventually, well, hopefully, having the commitment and motivation to actually log in and actually go through the resources. It's a huge leap of faith. Why is it worth it? Tell people, like, so where did you come from? You obviously had some quite very dark experiences, almost questioning your existence on earth. Then you came through a process of discovering slowly self-love and changing your relationship to what you're feeling and releasing and digesting old trauma patterns. How do you feel now in your life and in your body? Like, is it worth it? Like, it's definitely an effort. The question is it worth it? And that's what a lot of people listening will be wondering.
you mean, is it worth going through the Rocksteady program?
Yeah, the process. Because it's not a quick fix. can be quick, but for most people, it's a slow, steady burn. It's a slow inquiry for life, really, life skill.
Well, the first thing that I would say is that looking back on it now, it was one of the most beautiful things that has happened to me. And
Mhm.
it's still funny for me to say it because it was so difficult and it was a slow recovery.
Mhm.
And me being a person who just wants everything right now and right here, and I'm gonna find a way to do it. And also living in a world where it's how it is. You have things right here, right now, or we think we have them.
Mhm.
Um, it was really challenging, but looking back on it now, I mean, it was one of the most beautiful things. It gave me so much. And also I go back to the program now still. Um, just the other day, I couldn't put my finger to it. Like, what am I feeling? What's going on? Like, something is off. And I just did the body scan
Mm.
recording, and it's so simple, but it's just having someone there to just guide you and to tell you, hey, whatever you're feeling, it's fine. Feel it. It's allowed. It's okay. I
Mm.
mean, that's priceless. There's no price on it. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
And like my family was telling me the same, but it just wasn't perceived in the same way
I think it's
because
be- I think it's because in the this is I'm more saying this for listeners. Um, I think it's because the way the Rocksteady program is delivered is it really is accessing a lot of our subconscious intelligence that we're not speaking up here in the land of logic and language because we've all tried that. Like if that's how we're going to fix, the fix would have come. Whereas the Rocksteady program really invites people into the seat of the pelvis, into the feet, into the legs, into the shoulders, into the body, where there's this subliminal, subconscious conversation happening. And we allow the brain to leave language and actually feel and sense through the healing pathways and the rebuilding of new pathways. And very much so welcoming in a new profound sense of belonging to all sensory landscapes, that whatever we are sensing and feeling is real, is valid, is useful. And so we are little by little eradicating the fight, flight, freeze, fawn patterns, habits, and reactions. So they're all the little trauma patterns that are sort of embedded into our mind body processes. So it really is very much a gentle bodily exploration. And there's lots and lots and lots of different types of body scans we do in the Rocksteady program, different body positions, but they're all simple, they're all gentle, and they're all accessing this underlying wisdom.
yep. Now, now that I have experienced what all the Rocksteady program includes,
Mm,
um, everything, just everything. If I would have had the money at that point, looking back on it now, it's not a high price for it. It's because there's so much in it. Like, it's crazy how much you really get to help yourself.
mm,
But I am still so grateful that this was an option for me because I really couldn't afford it at that time. But it's just so many tools that you give that we can use still now,
mm,
just to feel good about ourselves, just to feel the self-love again, just to kind of come back from here to here and be like, oh, okay,
mm.
this is what's going on today, and this is what I need to give myself today
Yeah.
to be okay.
Yeah. And that's that resourcing and feeling prepared because life is tough. There are going to be lots of challenges throughout daily life, not just personal, but, also our family, our community, our country, our global planet. There are lots and lots of layers of challenge. And my intention for my Rocksteady community members is that we are able to have strong boundaries to digest life no matter what comes at us, to be able to reground and recenter and resettle ourselves in our nervous system at any point in time. You know, regardless of what the outer world is feeding us, we have this sense of inner world capacity and control, that we can come back to our sense of center, our sacred belonging within ourselves, and to navigate life with sovereignty, presence, authenticity. These are qualities and skills that our planet desperately needs, in my opinion. So it's so, so, so much more than symptoms, but it's often our symptoms that wake us up to the incoherences that we're sensing and feeling in the world, that our body's actually screaming at us, something's not right. And instantly, of course, we think, something's not right with me. I'm wrong. I'm bad. I'm sick. I'm weak. I'm troubled. Doctor, doctor, help me, right? So that's normal. But I think really what's going on when there's that clear MRI, there's medical clearance, the doctors are like, we're not sure. So when it's not clearly a medical anomaly or a physical thing, it's the body screaming, something's not right in my life. Something's not right in my community. Something's not right in how my needs are being listened to. Perhaps my needs are being unmet. And so we can do this inventory of stock take of learning, well, what do I need? What are my needs? In what ways am I different? Do I have unseen differences and neurodivergences that I process the world differently? Therefore, I need to give myself different time and space and respect. Do I need to self-advocate for myself? So there's so many layers of discovering what our needs are, who we are, how we identify, and then having the courage and bravery to get those needs met. And, you know, a little bit like you filling out this scholarship form, having the courage to back ourselves and speak up for ourselves and be experimental and give things a go, because sometimes things won't work out and we fall flat and we have to pick ourselves up and be kind and gentle and try again. So having all of these resilience skills are just hugely essential for mental health, emotional health, overall well-being. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's I actually I woke up, you know, the tinnitus woke me up, and it's so funny to say that because it's ringing in your head.
Yeah.
You know, your alarm clock rings in the morning, but it really, you know, from going um from just being so obsessed with when is this gonna end and how to end this,
Mm.
I started doing the program and I went towards, I don't know, like reconnecting with my father, who I haven't had a relationship with for so many years, and kind of like um re completely remodeling my relationship with my mother. And that was a huge thing. And
Well
to
done.
kind of like coming closer to my partner, to really, for the first time in my life, asking myself, what do I really need? And completely changing some things, you know? So it went from being obsessed about the symptom, which got me absolutely nowhere, to be honest,
Yeah.
you know, to kind of like, okay, wow, so many things are happening now, you know? And then the symptoms, they started becoming something I could live with, and something I could be with, and something I could go out and have an ice cream again with, you know, and like kind of it went hand in hand. So it really was like waking up for me, like, whoa, okay, so this is the real authentic me. I didn't know, I didn't know myself. I really didn't know myself.
And you now have moments when you don't hear it at all?
Yeah, I don't really hear it most of the time, to be honest. It's not,
The only
you
reason
know.
I ask is because most people listening are just desperate, like, is it really possible? Because in my opinion, you absolutely do not need to live with tinnitus. It's
No.
not an incurable disease. It's a normal phenomenon of a body that wants reconnection. And once we reconnect into our body and our brain and body start to make sense of itself, the tinnitus sounds actually resolve and they quiet and write down until they eventually disappear. And of course, the sounds may come up again if we lose connection. So then we reconnect and then it disappears again. So it's absolutely a normal, healthy phenomenon. And it is often a body screaming for help, attention, support, love, belonging, acceptance. You know, there is a common ground. Everybody's rock steady journey is unique and different and has its own flavor. But we're almost all seeking those qualities. And the body is literally screaming at us. to come in and to be authentic, to have integrity, to live with our values, to reconnect.
Yeah, and my body was screaming at me for quite some time. You know, even after I started doing the Rocksteady program, in the beginning, I just want people to really understand how it was for me, because maybe someone will have a similar experience. But even in the beginning of the Rocksteady program, I still somehow was, you know, not really wanting to hear everything. And but then slowly, by allowing myself to feel, and by understanding that what I'm feeling is fine and it's totally real for me, it's really happening now. And
Yeah.
but it's not dangerous, it's not going to kill me, it's not going to, you know, do anything to me, it's just something that's going on in my body right now at
Mm-hmm.
the moment. And slowly I started hearing what it is that I really need, you know, and what are the things that I really need to look at, even though they might be very, very difficult for me. But still, I need to look at this if I want to feel more like myself again.
Heeding the wisdom of the body. And the other thing that just comes to me as we're sharing this conversation is another one of the great delusions or lies of our modern day world, I think, is this externalizing, like a child, a newborn baby and a child needs a parent figure, right? They can't do things alone. They need food on the table, they need support getting dressed, toileting. But it's like we've been fed this extended adolescence and extended childhood, that we're fed this delusion that we should look outside of ourselves to get all of our needs met, for happiness, for all of it. When I think the greatest learning for me personally in my Rocksteady journey, which continues, I just live it as a way of life, reconnecting into myself and asking more questions and going deeper, meeting vulnerabilities and whatnot as they arise, is that for me, the truth is that actually, yes, we're interconnected, and the inner outer world is nothing but a dance of relationships, and everything is relationship, really. Every single thing, whether it's between me and a tree, or me and a person, or me and a system, or me and a hierarchy. So there's lots and lots of relationship, but not to let that get tangled up in my personal needs, that I can actually have my own sense of inner sacred divinity, my own sense of inner connection, my own sense of inner joy, my own sense of inner belonging. And I am completely in my own container with that. I'm impenetrable, I'm invincible, because no one else gets a say. It's my inner place, and it's where I have control, I have clarity, I have a sense of freedom. So sovereignty, the inner world and the outer world. And then, of course, if we start to get very spiritual and existential, the inner world is the outer world is the inner world. And there's all of this um, boundaries or boundaryless being, we can get really philosophical on it. But I think from a point of medical health and being human with well-being, we really have to get a sense of our boundaries. Because if we give our power away and we want doctors or husbands or wives or friends to fix us, to understand us, to make us feel better, to make us feel belonging, to make us feel accepted or loved, we're actually giving our precious life force away if we're seeking it outside of ourselves. It's not to say we can't receive all those juicy, yummy things from the outside, but there's a difference between needing it from other people. It's disempowering, it puts us in victim, and we get exhausted, tired, and sick. So there's a lot of, I think, cultural narratives that are deeply questioned in the Rocksteady community. We really have a paradigm shift of radically turning the gaze inwards, deeply trusting the sensations and wisdom of the body, and looking at how we can take control and sovereignty over we respond to that inner call.
Yeah, and that was a really important one for me, because there were moments where my partner was with me all the way through it. He really was my rock.
Yeah, nice.
But I I realized I'm my own rock. You know, there were moments where no one could help me but myself. I had some tools already. I had some knowledge already. I had some ways of kind of, you know, comforting myself already. And in those moments, just you know, kind of the knowing that started coming up for me and becoming stronger and louder was, you need to hold your own hand.
Yeah. And how
And that's
powerful.
what I got like in, I don't know, probably it was module 3 or 4, somewhere around that. It was like, I even had a dream about it because my subconscious, of course, was like working, you know. I
Mm.
was like, just hold your own hand, just walk yourself through this. It's fine.
It's so powerful. It's so incredibly powerful. And once we know we can move through such immense, profound, intense difficulty and hold our own hand and occasionally receive support from the outer world too, because this is the thing, there's a massive difference. If you're lucky enough to have a therapist or someone who can see you once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, that's a tiny amount of time. We have 24 hours in a day where we have to be with ourselves. It's just a huge, powerful resource to literally be able to hold yourself through a 3 a.m. panic. It's so empowering to be like, okay, well, if I can do it once, I can do it again. It feels
Yeah,
stronger, you know.
yeah, exactly.
So it's really not something to be dismissed or minimized. And there is definitely that fine line of not becoming an island or overly self-reliant. Yes, we have to be interdependent and let the outer world in to nourish us and to receive support. Again, just differentiating that from needing external support in specific ways, which locks us into a power game and a power imbalance and a loss of personal power. So there's a difference between being available for external support and to receive that however it flows, you know. And I'm talking even things like maybe you're buying, shopping at the supermarket, and a supermarket employee offers to help you take your box of food to the car. Receive that support, let it in. So the
Yeah.
support can come in any random way, and we can really feel held and supported by our human community when we have this sense of internal relationship and getting our needs met most of the time by ourselves in our inner world. Is just incredibly life-changing and powerful. And I think that's the shift from living in a perpetual adolescence where we're constantly looking for our friends or our parents or our teachers or some authority to save us, or even God and religious um,
Yeah.
bignesses, that seeking something outside of me to save me is really the ongoing eternal adolescence. And I think we really step into our adulthood when we start to realize I'm rock steady, I've got this, I can navigate this, I know myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I really have now. Because life keeps happening for everyone, for me as well, and there are still times where I feel a little bit anxious or panic a little bit or
Yeah.
hear some of the noises, when I'm really tired, for example, or when I take a long plane ride and the pressure, kind of needs to balance.
Yeah.
But now I have that message. Okay, just give yourself time and
Yeah.
just come back to yourself.
Can I
You
ask
try.
you, thank you so much for sharing all of this, and I know we have to wrap up our call soonish. Can I ask you a loaded question? And I'm just curious to see how you go with this, and all answers are perfect. But the question is, given the state of global conflict and wars in our world right now, as a Rocksteady graduate, how are you able to navigate that discomfort and that grief? And if that's something for us to digest, right? That's a tension pattern as a human being that we are embodying, whether we know it or not. It's a collective grief. I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you take time to body scan into it, to feel through it, to send compassion to to people far and wide? How are you in a dialogue with that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's an interesting time to live on Earth right now.
Yeah,
And I see it in my work as well, and just all around that it affects people, and of course it affects me as well. I'm a human being on this earth, and I have some close relationships to some people that are experiencing it firsthand.
yeah,
Um, and just allowing myself to feel it when it comes
yeah.
is one thing. Journaling
Mm.
about it tapping on it,
Mhm.
breathing, doing yoga. But then on the other hand is also having some boundaries into how much I go into it regarding, the news and the information and everything that's going on. So just having some boundaries, because I want to stay informed and I want to feel.
Yeah.
I've learned through this program that it's okay to feel whatever.
It's necessary to feel. We must feel. The feeling is the healing. The feeling is the
Yes.
releasing. The feeling is the softening. The feeling is our strength.
Yes, exactly. And but then also kind of being okay, I've looked at the news now, I know what's going on. Then I give myself a break, just kind of having boundaries with it as well, just not being completely consumed by it, because it can completely consume you, everything that's going on. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I couldn't agree more, to be perfectly honest. I'm the same. I'm not down rabbit holes chasing any global media. And I'm very careful about moderating the inputs and the conversations or the images or, but I will take a moment to pause and breathe and feel into it if and when it arises in my world, and that will spontaneously happen.
Yeah.
Um, and really allowing myself to feel the sort of the impact shock of like, oh, wow, this is happening to my neighbors over there across the oceans. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like my personal role is, because I am living in a safe country that's unaffected by conflict for the most part. I feel like my role is to digest my experience of the grief and the sadness and the injustices, so that if I am in relationship with people who are directly affected, that I can actually listen, I can be present, I can be supportive, that I'm not dealing with my own inner battle because I'm stuck with this undigested grief. So that it's like,
Mm.
if I'm an empty channel and I'm available, then at least I can be a ground worker, offering support, offering deep listening, offering cuddles, offering a meal. So it feels like that's my work, is to be available, to be processed, to be integrated. Because it is a privilege to live where I live. It's a fluke, but it's a privilege.
Yeah, it's the same here. Slovenia is right now a very safe country. We're not affected by anything yet. Who knows what's gonna happen, but it's
True.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel that as well, very much, very privileged, very grateful that I don't need to run, from one side of the country to another.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Tinkara. Do you have any closing words of encouragement or advice that you would offer yourself, a year or two ago?
That's a really good question. Well, what comes to my mind at the moment is just it's it probably whatever is, happening to anyone out there, and what happened to me really was like an opportunity to really live my life as Tinkara in this body, on this planet at this moment in time. It really was an opportunity to come back to myself, to keep coming back to myself, and
Mm.
to really live the most possible authentic and loving life. And it's from something that was so tremendously painful for me, kind of evolving now in such an joyful actually life. It is possible, even
Mm.
if anyone out there thinks it's, and I thought it, I was really with every cell in my body sure it's not possible, but here I am, like smiling.
Well done.
Really is.
I'm so pleased you made the commitment and you went through the modules and you didn't give up and you allowed it to unfold slowly. And I'm so pleased that you allowed it to also be integrated into your passion for yoga, because it is incredibly complementary and deepening. Um,
Yes.
Stay in touch with our community. I love having our global community. And I know we have at least a few people from Slovenia in the Rocksteady community. So I'm really,
Yeah.
really touched to hear your story and meet you today, Tinkara. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was such a pleasure meeting you and talking to you and being in this energy field. So thank you.
Yeah. For anyone listening who feels inspired, visit my website, seekingbalance.com.au. You can learn all about the Rocksteady community. There's lots of resources. There's Facebook group. We have live monthly calls. You do all of the Rocksteady learning in your own self-paced way. You do what you want when you want. It's an absolute sovereign process. Um, and the community, I think, is next level. The peer support, the peer understanding, feeling that you're not crazy, feeling that you're not alone, feeling seen and heard, and above all else, actually having a process to go through one step at a time, that you're not lost and groundless and wavering in the wind, that there is actually a very methodical process you can go through to help reverse symptoms, to rebuild new sensory maps, and to come home to your body and regain a lot of control. So seekingbalance.com.au. I'm Joey Remenyi. It's a bye for now, and thank you so much, Tinkara.
Bye.